Okay, great. All right. So how many startups have you worked with, and are you interested in working with more startups? So I've worked with, I don't know, probably thousands of startups. So just been working with startups since I essentially came out of law school. And at that time, I was actually a startup founder myself for consumer packaged goods. So I went through the whole trials and tribulations of actually being a founder, raising money, getting product development, stuff like that. So that really kind of lended myself to being, with my legal knowledge, just being a fantastic startup attorney. So, unlike many lawyers that just have only been a lawyer their whole lives. So that's kind of, my career history. And I just love startups. As you can see, I get excited when I talk about them. So it's, I guess, what kind of gets me up, gets me out of the bed in the morning. Then successful startups to your example situation, your startups that did not go well. I mean, well, startups by nature are, high risk, assets, and most startups don't go well, or essentially do not, go public or have a successful exit. Most startups lose money. That being said, my philosophy is risk reduction strategy. I'm not here to kind of tell the startup in terms of like, whether or not this is a good business idea. My job is to help the startup be, reduce risk in terms of legal by like doing things like incorporating, getting a trademark, having good terms and conditions on the website, and also just some business risk in terms of, mistakes that they can make on business. For example, like going and building a $200,000 app or beta app without doing like a lot of good market research before that and stuff like that. So that's kind of my philosophy in terms of how I help startups. I've had some startups have some successful exits in the biometric space, in the fashion space. Definitely have to have, I have so many startups that it's really hard to remember them all, but I know I've had some really successful ones too. Role, billable rates, resources, we're working in account, we talked about that a little bit, in terms of, what kind of value I can bring to you. I think for this, you're right, I'll keep you at the startup rate fees in terms of some of the work that we've talked about in terms of entity formation, kind of telling you what you should budget for everything, right? So I'm going to give you kind of like what the anticipated budget would be for the entity formation, for the trademark due diligence, for the terms and conditions and website disclosures. And I think for this kind of business consulting that we started to talk about in terms of, chat GPT and marketing strategy and content strategy, I can probably bring a lot of value there. So I'll look you in the eye and I'll, give you a quote to charge you for that. What else? What's the next one? What's the best way for me to work with you in the team highest quality, least amount of fees? I think a good way to lower fees is just to kind of be straight up with your attorney. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you should do your own research ahead of time and kind of lay out for the attorney so the attorney can make the best decision. I think the entrepreneur can kind of decide where they want to go, and the attorney should be in charge of how to get there. There might be 4 different roadways to get to a certain destination, but it's the attorney's job to decide, which roadway is the best for this particular situation at this particular time. And if you want to go from like downtown to Santa Monica Pier, the attorney will still get you there. But whether you're going to take the 10 or some other street, that service streets, that should be up to the attorney. At least get that advice. What's the best piece of advice that you can give a founder at a startup in my position? That would be, well, that's a good question. Best piece of advice: don't focus on the details. Keep your head on the big picture. Let your kind of lawyers and other kind of professionals handle some of the details. But at the same time, CEO's job is 50% marketing, 50% everything else. So that's another one. ABR, always be raising. That's another one. To have 50 coffee meetings, that's what you're going to have to do. We can talk more about that when you go on your roadshow, things of that nature. The 80-20 rule, that's another one. That's a good question. 3 most common legal challenges that you experience with other clients that are developing legal challenges. Sometimes the trademark, but we do the trademark search first, so we can give the client as much of a best assessment in terms of whether the trademark is low risk or high risk or medium risk. But really, if you're coming to us and we're doing things right, then you should not have, the whole point is for us to, reduce your legal risk as you go into the market. There's several types of risks that you have. You have legal risk, you have market risk, and you have financial risk. Now, so we try to help you on all three of those, but obviously legal risk is probably the easiest one to reduce by just doing your legal due diligence. What are the most important terms to consider? End user agreements, SaaS software, subscription offering. I mean, everything is really important. DMCA notices, just do what you say and say what you do. That's my philosophy when it comes to those disclosures. Do what you say and say what you do. What are the three most obvious terms to include in a license arrangement enterprise? There's a lot more than we can go into in this call. There's a lot of legalese that goes into these long, just because it's copyright driven, and copyright law is one of those few areas of law that's still governed by the statute of frauds. A lot of things have to be in writing, so lawyers will not hesitate to, have a lot of clauses in these copyright license agreements, and the more the merrier, so to speak.